Welcome, everyone. My name is Blake Bailey, and I am the team lead for customer success here at Process Street. We're very excited today to bring to you this very special presentation webinar of how Salesforce uses Process Street for client success. So today, on this 1-hour broadcast, we're going to be going over some of the basic concepts over essentially how you can use Process Street for client success generally. Then we're going to go into the specifics of how our special guest, Alex here, uses Process Street for client success at Salesforce, specifically Salesforce's company, Datorama. Let's go ahead and get started here with the actual broadcast. When we're talking about client success in Process Street, and realistically, we're talking about just general customer management, general anything you're doing that has to deal with customers inside of Process Street, we're talking about some major key points here. First off, of course, we're talking about client onboarding, right? When you got a new customer, you want to make sure that their experience with your company is as good as it possibly can be. It is that first impression that really counts, right? So you want to make sure that they're getting onboarded effectively and efficiently, right? And Process Street is absolutely the way that you're going to be able to do that, making sure that everyone is following the same protocols, that you're able to handle things variably no matter what the situation is for your customer. You're going to be able to do that inside of Process Street, and client onboarding is a way to do it. It's actually one of our number one biggest use cases here at Process Street. Now, you've onboarded them, right? You brought them on. You've done the initial part of just welcoming them to your company, whether you're a law firm, a marketing firm, a healthcare company, whatever you do. If you have some sort of a customer, you need to then actually implement whatever it is that they're paying you for, right? So maybe you have a project you're doing for them. Maybe you have a product that you need to roll out to them. You need to make sure that they know how to use. You want to make sure that that thing is implemented correctly. And oftentimes, those projects or products, they might be extremely variable, right? They might change over time. You might have new products or new offerings. And you want to make sure that your people that are actually implementing it are following the right steps. Well, that's a reason to use Process Street. Now, going beyond that initial implementation, you've got the continual work that happens over the entire lifetime of that customer, as long as they exist with you as your customer. Well, that is account management. You want to make sure that they're continually happy, and that you're continually checking in with them, and that they want to stick with you, and that any other new things that can happen, whatever it might be, you're on top of it, and that is account management. And client success is Process Street is a great way to actually run that element of client success. Speaking of, when issues do come up, maybe they have a question about something, or something isn't quite working out, or whatever it might be, you need to be able to handle that. And that is support, right? So that's an element of this. And that is just continual work. It could be at the beginning, could be at the, a later stage and with them with you, right? You want to make sure that they are happy and their needs are addressed. That is support. And importantly, you want to make sure that the people who are doing your support are trained properly, that they're following the right protocols and procedures, especially if those protocols and procedures change over time, which is natural for any sort of thing like that to do. And of course, you want to go ahead and keep all of that stuff in Process Street, and no matter what system you're using, whether it be something from like Zendesk to Intercom, you're going to be able to hook that up to Process Street really easily to automate things and ensure that things are being held accountable. Now, you've done all of the things up to this point really well, right? So you've gotten your customer on board, you've implemented your projects, you've gotten to build a relationship with them by handling all of their support requests and just generally reaching out to them as you needed to. Well, they're really happy. So first off, you hope that they stay, and that's of course retention. And then beyond that point, well, you hope that they continue to, ideally pay you more money to do more things, to get more benefits from you, whether it be more services or more products or whatever it might be. You want them to expand, because that means a happy customer that is continuing to exist with you and wants to grow with you, right? So Process Street is going to allow you to identify those opportunities, to reach out to your customers, to then when they actually say, yes, I want to expand, to ensure that they have a seamless process to actually get that to happen, okay? So that is retention and expansion. There's plenty of different ways you can do that inside of Process Street as well. On the flip side, of course, sometimes customers might not be quite as happy, right? There might be issues that come up, right? And ideally, you don't want them to churn, or of course, if you don't work in software, that just means leave. You don't want them to cancel or whatever you might do in terms of them leaving you. You never want that to happen. And issues come up. Sometimes it might be something related to your actual product or service, which you hope not. If you have good processes in place, that's much less likely. But maybe it's something that's happening within their business. Maybe they're having trouble rolling something out. They're having trouble seeing the value, or maybe they're actually having trouble because of something external, like, of course, COVID that's happening right now. So you want to be able to get ahead of that, reach out to your customers, make sure that they never suffer, that they know that you're always there for them, and that you can always address these issues before they come up or right as they come up, and they're being handled, and they don't turn into big, giant snowballs or fires or whatever sort of metaphor you want to use that causes them to leave, because you never want that to happen. So these are just some general ideas as to how you could use Process Street for customer success or client success. Really, you could use it for millions of different ways, of course. Whatever it is that's specific to you, you can go ahead and use Process Street for that. If you do it more than once, Process Street's definitely the place to do that in, right? But these are sort of the big general areas that we tend to see. And of course, here in customer success at Process Street, these are the things that we have tons of processes and automations for built inside of Process Street. So without any further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome our special guest today, Alex Hauer. He is a senior success consultant for Datorama, which is a company that Salesforce acquired back in 2018. He's been with Datorama for a very long time, so before Salesforce ever acquired them, and when their customer success team was much smaller, and he was actually able to then grow that team and then even take that team through the acquisition, and is still with them today. And what he does is that he works with the team to scale and to ensure that they're helping clients to unleash the full potential of the Datorama platform. I won't actually go into detail about what Datorama does, because that's what Alex is here for. He's going to talk about that a little bit, and of course talk about how Datorama has been able to use Process Street to become successful, right? Or to rather enhance their success. It's been absolutely my pleasure to work with Alex. I'm actually the account manager for Salesforce here at Process Street. So I've gotten to work with Alex for a couple of years now at this point, and he's a wonderful person, really wonderful to work with, and even more wonderful to work with on this webinar as well. Fun fact, Alex has never had a cup of coffee. I don't know if I believe him. I have a cup of coffee next to me right here. I think I might die if I didn't have it, but Alex is stronger than me, obviously, because he's just never had one. So with that, welcome, Alex.
Thanks for that, Blake. Very kind. And I know people probably have some questions around how I don't drink coffee. And, it's just one of those things that you don't know what you're missing if you never even try it in the first place. But anyway, that's enough about me and enough about coffee. Let's start talking about Salesforce and Datorama and client success, three of my favorite topics. So first, a brief overview of Datorama, if you're not already familiar with our platform. We are your complete marketing intelligence platform. So Datorama, which is a Salesforce marketing cloud company, is the world's leading platform to connect and unify all of your marketing data, investments, KPIs, and decisions. We have an AI-powered marketing intelligence system that puts you in control and connects your data, analyzes it across channels and campaigns, surfaces the right insights instantly, and helps you collaborate across teams to optimize ROI and drive growth. We are the trusted marketing intelligence platform of choice for thousands of brands, agencies, and publishers alike. And we do all of that by helping marketers create a marketing system of record and insight. We help, through our Einstein Marketing Insights, drive AI-powered insights to help you make smarter decisions. And we facilitate that alignment and collaboration across teams with data visualization. And that idea of alignment and collaboration is something you'll hear me talk about, because it's something that Process Street also does very well and has been a huge win for us in terms of rolling out Process Street at Datorama. And finally, with all of that within Datorama, you are empowered to be agile and innovative, which, again, is something that Datorama and Process Street have in common. Both of our platforms have allowed our customers, so me in this case for Process Street, to become very agile and very innovative and collaborate not only across teams, but around the globe, which is why it's so amazing that we have so many global participants here today, because you'll hear a lot about me talking about how we grew our global practice. So as Blake noted in my intro, Datorama started as a small Israeli startup created by some media masterminds. When I joined the team, we took up only half of a floor of a small building in the Flatiron district in New York. So we split that floor with another Israeli startup, and we shared a kitchen. And that sharing of the kitchen was interesting and was really a test, because you never knew if the cake that someone had left on the counter was meant for you or for the other company. And it definitely led to some awkward situations. But the punchline here, as you all already know, is that we grew. We progressively scaled and we grew. And that was not only our client base, but also our reputation and our team. We went from a handful of client success managers to a global client success team. And that is quite a large global client success team globally as well. So as of 2018, we were acquired, and what was already a large global success team grew even further when we were integrated into the Salesforce Ohana. So we're now part of a worldwide network that encompasses thousands of people, and which is quite an amazing growth. But as you can imagine, with that growth came some challenges, especially as it related to onboarding and servicing our clients. Those responsibilities are held within our client success group, and the challenges of growth were especially felt by that team. The client success team at Datorama is tasked with platform coaching, technical guidance, and business consultation. We now have a larger team because of that acquisition and our global growth, who needs to understand how to onboard and service a large client portfolio. They need a way to service these additional clients quickly and efficiently, as we had to meet the growing needs of a growing team. And one thing to note is I'm going to use some tech language because I work for a tech company, but you probably recognize that these are the same challenges that your team is likely facing, whether you are coaching someone on a platform, coaching someone on a service, giving them technical guidance, consulting on their business. These transcend industries, and Process Street helped us do all of that much more efficiently. Through that growth, we realized that we were facing some unique challenges. How do we effectively share knowledge? How do we effectively scale repeatable processes? How do we ensure we're using best practices and common language? How do we standardize and streamline processes when not everyone is co-located, which is more relevant now than ever? These questions and more were answered when we introduced Process Street into our practices. I'm happy to speak how Process Street has impacted our client success team more generally. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A, as Blake noted. But let's pivot now to the topic of client onboarding. Before showing you some of the solutions we created to help us scale, I want to define client onboarding. I don't see client onboarding as simply setting up entitlements or giving people access or logins or welcoming them to a service or giving them the right permission they need when a client first buys a software or a service. I see it as a multiple crucial step process that puts a client in a life cycle that primes them for growth. And as Blake noted, that growth is also a great way to utilize Process Street. But onboarding to me is the combination of setup, positioning primary use case, technical enablement, and addressing primary technical needs. These are the main building blocks that onboard the client onto a platform and lead to success. If these are properly addressed and successfully completed, then your client is sure to mature with your platform and grow over time. I'm now going to walk you through a few sanitized examples of templates that we here at Datorama have created to help us with this client onboarding. And I feel like I have to say this, but I apologize. I'm going to try to use the Process Street vernacular, but in case you hear me say the word playbook, we here at Datorama call templates playbooks. I just felt like I had to say that for Blake's sake, so that he doesn't get mad at me. So with that, the first template I want to highlight is our Datorama use case kit. When a client begins their Datorama journey, the platform is a blank slate. So it is client success's responsibility to enable the client on the platform's full potential while customizing to their specific use case needs. That is the entire purpose of onboarding, showing the client everything that they can do within the platform. So onboarding a client to that initial use case requires having a solid understanding of the platform functionality, the client's understanding of the business objectives, and how the business objectives and the platform come together with all the technical aspects of a use case to find success. At Datorama, we understood that clients often tackled similar use cases in the platform and that there was a specific order we needed to follow when onboarding a client to their first use case. So with Process Street, we templatized the process of onboarding clients to their first and even subsequent use cases using the platform. We built out our use case kit to standardize the process of discovering, pitch, adoption, and success of that client onboarding use case, while also allowing for unique customization. Because as much as we can templatize, each client is unique and deserves unique service. Fortunately, Process Street allows you to standardize while also allowing for that uniqueness. It's the best of both worlds. So I'm going to jump into the platform and show you a sanitized version of our Datorama use case kit. Fortunately for me, Blake has already pulled it up, which is very helpful. So you will see here, when a client success manager gets a new client, they log into Process Street and they run a checklist for our use case kit. So you'll see here that I have this checklist created for myself for this webinar. We have a specific nomenclature that we like to follow for each checklist, which is a key tip. Establish a nomenclature so that you can more easily understand and digest the data within Process Street to keep track of who is running checklists and for what clients. This also allows us to very easily find within this system of record, which Process Street has become, all of the changes that a CSM or Client Success Manager is making for our account and everything that is happening with regards to the client and their relationship. For example, if a Client Success Manager were to change accounts and they want to find all the previous records that relate to a client, they can now go in Process Street, search the name within the templates or in the checklist, and they now have full access to see everything that has occurred for a client. So this is one of the key benefits that we found of Process Street, is that it really acts as a system of record. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. Let's take a step back and see how we actually use this checklist. So I come in here, I get an overview of what this template or checklist occurs, and I can start taking actions immediately. The good thing about Process Street is it's dynamic. It lets me interact with it. I can say I've done these steps, and that is now noted within this checklist. It is, again, that great system of record where I can see everything that has been completed for a client's onboarding. In terms of uniqueness, when I go into the client information input, I have these free-form fields where I can note who the client is, what their account ID is, who is managing this account, and note their primary use case that we want to tackle. So we utilized Process Street's conditional logic to surface the most relevant resources to the client at the most appropriate time. So as you can see here for this use case, Datorama is, again, not one size fits all. There are many different things that a client can achieve within the platform. And we noted that even within this client onboarding. Some clients are going to onboard because they have a media performance use case. Others might be trying to do active data QA and governance, or some might be programmatic vendors. With Process Street's conditional logic, you'll note that when I change the dropdown here, the options on the left-hand rail also change as well, meaning that this checklist is surfacing the most relevant data and the most relevant steps for my specific client. This is, again, completely standardized, but completely customizable for my client's needs. So in this case, I'm going to pretend that my client wants to tackle the media performance use case. I can now go through and see all of the different resources that are available for me to speak to my client about MPO, media performance optimization. Within the checklist, which I can go through step by step, or I can jump around, I now see all of this relevant information that has been approved as common language, that has been approved as best practice. I can go through and I can note all of the things that I've sent to a client. So I've sent them the one-sheeter, I've sent them the slides, and I've gone through our first call deck. I have questions that I can ask that have been proven to show the best results. And I can even templatize client correspondences to ensure we're servicing the client in an efficient manner. And when I've completed that pitch, I can say, I've completed that task. I now know where in the onboarding process this client sits. That's, again, great for historical knowledge and for my own knowledge. You can go through the entire onboarding process in an example like this Datorama use case kit, which again allows you to take all these actions in one stored checklist that can be referenced by all teammates, allowing us quickly to be on the same page, even if we're not co-located. There's more that I can show you about this Datorama use case kit, so please put questions in the chat and I will return to them later. But I also want to show you some other things that we do in terms of onboarding with Process Street. So I'm going to switch back to the presentation. So that was the initial part of the onboarding, getting them set up with their primary use case. But we know that once a client is in our platform, they likely come to us with more technical and specific questions. Answering those questions efficiently, utilizing both best practices and centralized language, ensures that the client has the best onboarding experience possible. We use Process Street to centralize those best practices. The client success team rather, creates technical documentation that walks step by step through how to solve a question or use case. And in a case like how to best use the platform to synthesize multiple currencies where there are multiple solutions, that conditional logic again ensures that the client success manager gets the right solution for their client. We like to think of Process Street kind of as an internal knowledge base. It enhances our team's knowledge and allows us to grow with strength. Best practices can easily be shared, and thanks again to that checklist capability, the managers can easily monitor who has completed what. It is all things that our team needed. It is truly our system of record for client success. But the benefits go beyond our internal team. In fact, our clients also find benefits from us using Process Street. Sometimes we want a client to follow a step-by-step process on their own without our guidance. We like to be very collaborative when it comes to onboarding. We will help you, but we also want to make sure that you are growing and fostering an environment of independence and self-sustainability. But sometimes just providing a document with steps isn't sufficient. What if the client doesn't follow the steps accurately? How do we know where in the onboarding process the client is? Did they get stuck? Fortunately, Process Street allows us to do this very well. We can create checklists that the client can complete on their own. Because they're using a checklist and not just following instructions in an email, we are confident that they will go through the steps in the proper order. This mitigates our risk of something being done inaccurately and significantly lessens the possibility of them having technical consequences. We can also follow along in their process, in their progress, and see where they are and if they might have gotten stuck on a specific step. This is, again, an easy way to scale common best practices and processes efficiently, both internally and with your clients. But that process is not static. We sometimes need to make updates on the fly. For example, if something new came out and we need to make an update to a process, we would want that to be reflected in the steps. Fortunately, Process Street makes that easy, given all updates to a template can be pushed to active checklists. Similarly, Datorama's platform is not static. We constantly are releasing new modules or making updates to existing ones. When we do release new products or updates, and we need to make sure our internal teams are aligned on updated capabilities and messaging, we use Process Street. Rather than relying on disparate emails or resources, we centralize everything into one Process Street template. This allows us to create a cohesive story and create a uniform, intentional talk track for our clients. This benefits us internally. It reduces the speed and effort of scaling our platform, and our clients are now better enabled to use the platform and onboard appropriately using the best and latest offerings. Our plans can roll out smoothly to our wide global team, even if, again, we aren't all in the same location or even the same time zone. Those issues of location and time zone have been exacerbated as of late during this pandemic and quarantine. We've all felt the pain of this isolation and of the rapid changes that have affected every aspect of our lives and businesses. This pandemic called for a very specific approach to business, and it called for a very timely and immediate response. Fortunately, again, with Process Street, we were able to meet those needs. When talking to a client during an unexpected moment, you need to lead with empathy and with care. It is not the time to distract people with unnecessary messages or misaligned outreaches. So, we at Datorama, hoping to provide assistance during this time and during these trying times, use Process Street to centralize some immediate actions we could suggest to our clients to make their lives easier. Internally, through our use of our nomenclature and our checklists, we're able to track the client engagement and even gather feedback to tailor our approach. While you can never expect the unexpected, you can help guide your clients through instability with a plan. And Process Street helped us make that plan and disseminate it effectively. So, if we bring it back to my initial definition of onboarding, you can see how Process Street helped us templatized our use case kit, which made the setup of a client and adoption of the primary use case that much easier. We took best practices from our organization and scaled them efficiently. We also trained both our internal team and clients on best practices and new products using both use case specific templates like a currency solution and product specific templates like a new product launch. And when specific technical needs came up, like deprecating a user, we enabled our clients to follow specific step-by-step processes to ensure nothing went awry in a potentially sensitive situation. Combined, these have allowed us to find growth both internally and with our clients. Onboarding is never easy, nor is it a one-size-fits-all. Each client has their own needs, and life is likely to throw some bumps in the way. But with a tool like Process Street, we have been able to create scalable solutions that take some of the guesswork out of the process while still allowing us to customize our client communication. We can even deploy solutions for the unexpected, guiding our clients out of onboarding and on their path towards growth. We continue to grow our practice with Process Street and know there's more that we can be doing, and I'm really excited to see what's next for us, and I hope you all see the potential that we saw. And with that, I think I am going to throw it back to Blake.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. That was incredible. I actually have gotten to see some element of that, of course, in the preparations of this webinar, but I really didn't get to hear the full run through like you just did up until this point. So that was really, really good. And yeah, thank you so much for going through all of that. All right. So for the last little bit of this broadcast, what I'd like to do is bring it home by the beginning of this, we've talked a little bit about the general concept of using Process Street for customer success. But, we kind of went through a little bit about obviously how Alex and Salesforce have used Process Street to be successful. But what I'd like to do now is kind of give you some resources to help you be successful inside of Process Street, right? So as you can see here, we've got pre-made templates, we've got blog articles, we've got case studies, we've got customer success ebook, and we have a secret. We have something else that I can't tell you yet, but I will, I promise. I will tell you, but first, let's take a look at these items. Okay, so whenever you are inside of Process Street, and especially when you're on your within the home folder, what you will see on the top left corner of your screen is a green new button. If you click on that, you will see in that dropdown, you'll see an option for new pre-made templates, and that will actually launch the pre-made template gallery, which we have just revamped last week, in fact. And we've got over 800 different pre-made templates. These are templates that you don't have to create. You don't have to create from scratch. You don't have to do anything at all. You just grab one that you like. You say, I want this. They're completely free. No matter what plan you're on, they're completely free. You can have as many as you want. And then you pull that into your organization. You can edit those to whatever your needs might be. Okay, you can edit them to your heart's desire. And the whole point of those, of course, is that either A, maybe you take it and you run with it and that becomes your process. B, you go in and you edit it, and maybe that you need to make some changes and then it becomes your process. Or C, maybe it's not a perfect fit and you have a very specific process, but this is at least going to give you something to start with, some ideas. They're packed with all of the advanced features, really, really awesome things in there. They're made by our marketing team. They are sourced and full of best practices. So, I mean, they're like education in themselves. So I definitely recommend going in. We've got tons of processes in there for onboarding, for support, for account management, for all the things that I mentioned before. We have pre-made templates, not just one, not just two, but tons of them for every use case that you could possibly ever need. So check those out. We have those in there. You can also find them on our blog. If you just go to that link down there below, process.st/client onboarding process will give you, I believe, 14 or 17 different onboarding process templates that you can just bring straight into your organization for free and start using today. Okay, so check those out. Don't worry about getting that link or anything. You will get these resources at the end of this webinar. Don't worry. I just wanted to show you that just in case you're looking here. So in addition to those pre-made templates, you got to check out our blog. If you aren't already subscribed to the Process Street blog, I'm really sorry for you. I really am, because you should definitely check them out. Before I ever started working here, I was subscribed to the Process Street blog because they put out incredible material, specifically incredible material around managing clients. They put it out all over things, whether it be technology, automation, business, operations, just everything. They're creating articles all the time, really great content. You want to check that out. You can go to the blog, process.st/blog, and you can search for support, search for client onboarding, search for client success, customer success, whatever you want. You will find tons of articles on every topic, really thorough, really well written. Definitely check those out. Tons and tons of stuff that's really going to help you out. So do check those out, okay? One of the things that you will find when you do that are case studies. So similar to this webinar, where obviously this is a case study of how Salesforce uses Process Street, We also have tons of articles about how other companies have used Process Street to do different elements of their business. Of course, as you can see here, here's 3 examples of different customers who have used Process Street to manage their customers in different ways. And these are very different types of companies, from software to managed services. Check these out. Check out these articles. You can just go to the blog and search case study. You'll see all the case studies there. You can also just look up that tag. You'll see it there as well. So definitely check that out. Really, really great stuff. In fact, the one on the right-hand side there, how LA Creative uses Process Street, we did a webinar about a year ago where we essentially went through and saw how they use Process Street. You can check that out on our YouTube channel. Okay, so go to YouTube, just search Process Street. You'll see that recording in there as well. Now, if you work for a software company, if you work with, or if you have a software company, and even if you don't, but especially if you do, you want to check out the customer success ebook that our marketing team created. Okay, this is a full ebook. It is 100% free. You can download it. You can just go access it on the computer. Whatever you need, you can go to this link right here. You can also just go to the blog and look up Customer Success ebook. And this will go ahead and take you through everything you need to know about customer success. This is literally required reading for everybody who works in customer success for Process Street. Okay, so everyone who comes on as a new hire has to read this. I had to read it. Everyone does. It is wonderful. I'm really glad that I did. I recommend that you do as well. Again, it is free. Just go on there, check it out. Okay. So first question I have here. The main question I get from my team, by the way, this is from David. Thank you, David. The main question I get from my team: why use Process Street and not just build it into Salesforce? Their idea is Salesforce is a sole source of truth for customers. That is an excellent question. That's actually something that we get generally, not just about Salesforce, but about lots of different tools. And it's a pretty straightforward one to answer. Okay, so what I always recommend is this. When you are dealing with any sort of tool, Salesforce included, Salesforce, of course, is a CRM, a customer relationship management tool. The object in that case, in that database, is a customer, right? If you think about maybe a hiring tool, right, that is going to be, the object in that case is the candidate and then eventually the new hire, right? Any sort of tool, whatever it is, has an object. It has a central thing that you are keeping track of. And Salesforce, again, that is the customer. And so you're right, that is the sole source of truth for customers, and it should be. But for Process Street, the object is not the customer, it is the process, right? It is the process, and specifically it's the checklist that you're running off of the process. And the beauty of keeping those two things separate is that means that, sure, you have Salesforce where you're going to maintain your customer data, but what happens when you need to then run a process, right? And specifically, what happens when you need to run a process and then update that process over time to account for changes, right? You want to use Process Street because, again, the process is the object. So that means that it's able to pull in data from Salesforce. We're able to do that in a number of different ways. That can be through Zapier, through an automation through Zapier. So, an opportunity is changed to close one in Salesforce. That can trigger a automation in Zapier to then run a checklist in Process Street and fill it out with all of that customer data from Salesforce. If you don't want to use Zapier, you can also instead use what's called a checklist run link. It's essentially a bookmark to running a checklist in Process Street. You can use variables inside of Salesforce and just create a quick little link that takes you, again, you click on that link in the account page, and it can take you straight into a brand new checklist, and again, fill it out with all the data from Salesforce. And so that way, all of the customer data is retained inside of Salesforce, because that is, again, this is a source of truth. But Process Street, with the process, is able to then take that data, and then you're able to run with it, okay? And in that way, you're not having to worry about, what happens when you update your process or anything like that inside of Salesforce. Having to update all of your objects and things of that nature can get really messy. By having them separate, that means that one, the process is always going to be secure and easily updatable, especially when that means you're updating it partway through, maybe the onboarding of a new client. You can update your checklist, the existing checklist, automatically when you go to update that process overall in the template. And then, of course, you can push the data back into Salesforce. So I recommend always what I call a full cycle automation, where data is getting pulled out of Salesforce or any other tool, goes through the process in in Process Street, and then pushes it back into Salesforce. And that way all the data is still flowing in a circle. And again, the process is able to be kept, well maintained. The other thing with that too is that if you're using lots of different tools, lots of different systems with lots of different types of objects, customers, candidates, projects, etc., you're able to still have Process Street be the hub, but then maintain the data, the original source of data in whatever other tool it is, and then tie them all together. That's really the beauty of Process Street. Okay, so you can do lots of things with it. Whereas with one tool, with one type of object, you're really limited to just that. But then that's why you want to have a community of different types of tools together.
And just to expand on that a bit, for the Salesforce perspective, I would definitely say that the two are complementary. All of what Blake said is very true. And to give a bit of a more client real life example, we have a weekly health check that we run for clients. That is a run link that would be part of that client object that you can run, that you can fill out, and it will automate all of the client specific points, as Blake said. And we are also working to integrate the backwards flow, as Blake noted, so that anytime you run a checklist for a given client, it is then automated into Salesforce as an activity or a note for that client, keeping everything that is done for that client in one place while also having the benefits of Process Street and the step-by-step processes.
Absolutely. Really, really good answer there. Yeah. So let me move on to this next one here. So I got a question from Michael. Thank you, Michael. So can multiple users access and update the same checklist? Absolutely. That's actually one of the big benefits of Process Street, is the ability to have lots of different people, even people that are even inside of your organization, maybe people who are customers or vendors or anything like that, to be able to securely come into Process Street and work on the same checklist as you. You can manage who sees what using what's called task permissions. You can ensure that people are getting assigned to things and notified at the right time using assignments. You can even do those things flexibly with role assignments. And you can also even manage reminders using what's called dynamic due dates. So you can absolutely have multiple different people working in the same checklist at the same time, going back and forth, answering things, completing things, triggering off automations, whatever you need to do. So you definitely can get that done. Another question here. Is there an integration with Salesforce so a user doesn't have to toggle to different apps? Any way to update fields in either app? So that is definitely where you would want to use either Zapier or checklist run links. Checklist run links, you can use checklist run links or Zapier to come from Salesforce to Process Street, and then you use Zapier to go from Process Street back to Salesforce. And so you can update fields in both services very seamlessly, okay? Okay, so from Nuno, besides giving a path and checklist to the customers, which is very good, you also have automatic routing between colleagues to distribute tasks. Yes, absolutely. So that's where you would want to use those task assignments, where you would set those up inside of the template. So you essentially say that every time this runs, this needs to go to this person, or I think this is probably what you're asking, this particular role. So maybe it's the account manager, maybe it's the customer success manager, maybe it's the support person, right? And whoever that is might change. Well, you can feed into Process Street from maybe Salesforce or any other tool that you're using, who it is that is filling that role this particular time automatically. And then that way, all those things get assigned to that person. They get notified. It shows up in their inbox. Really, really good, awesome way to be able to handle that sort of a situation. Okay, so is there a way in Process Street to assign part of a process to X user and another part to Y user who gets notified when X user finishes up their part? Yes, so those are those assignments. The way that you would actually lock it off so that one person isn't getting notified. So let's just say that in your case, I think you said Y, so X and Y are the two users, X being the first, Y being the second. The way that you're able to make it so that Y user isn't being notified too early, and they're being notified once the X user, the first one, has completed their part, is by using another feature called stop tasks. It's also called enforced order. So what you're able to do is you're able to say that, let's just say the first 5 tasks are done by the X user, the first one, and you put a stop task on the 5th task, so the last one of theirs. What that's going to do is that once they complete all of their tasks, it'll then unlock the next set of tasks, maybe 6 through 10 goes to the next user, And what that'll do is it'll automatically then send a notification to let them know, hey, all of these things are done. It's now your turn. It's your responsibility. So that's a great way to be able to get that done. Is that something, I think that's something that you guys are using, Alex, is that right?
Yeah, it is. And it's similar to the other question that was answered, ensuring that the account manager comes in and does the appropriate tasks so that the client success manager can move on to the next step, or alerting any other teams that are needed to ensure everything, again, runs in a very smooth and orderly state, and that all of the teams collaborate cross-functionally and, again, even cross-locationally.
Awesome. I got a question here from Paul. So does this mean Salesforce is acquiring Process Street? No, it does not. Not that, no comment, but no, it does not mean that. Salesforce actually, if you don't already know though, is one of our investors. So earlier this year, we actually had our Series A round of $12 million funding. That was between Excel and Salesforce Ventures. So we are a Salesforce venture. We are not acquired by Salesforce, but they are an investor in us. I should probably say that.
Yes, we have a very close relationship, but not that close yet.
Yep. Let's see here. So I've got another question here, which is from Sebastian. How do you enable the customer to self-service and not even have to contact support? I understand that if they reach out to support, a support agent can always send them a checklist to go through a process to solve the problem themselves. But how would a customer find a checklist themselves without help from an agent? Can Process Street expose a public knowledge base that customers can browse through to only then create a checklist for? So the way that you would likely do that, and actually quite a few people do actually do this, is to essentially create what's called share links, okay? Now you can have, if you want them to just read information, what you would have is what's called a template share link. And there's a specific permission on that, which allows you to say, share this with anyone who has the link, similar to, say, Google Docs, Google Drive, when you say, anyone with this link can view this document, right? Same exact concept, but of course, just in Process Street. And so you can have that on. If you just want them to come in and read the information, just kind of like Help Docs, and you can host those links on your site, which would be a really great way to do that. Additionally, what you can do is you can also have what's called of course, a checklist run link. I mentioned that before with running out of Salesforce, but you can also have it so that is anonymous, so that they don't have to log in. Same thing with that template share link. They don't have to log in at all. They just come in and they just view it. In this case, with a checklist run link, they of course run a brand new checklist without ever having to log in, and then they could actually submit a ticket that way. A lot of people use that as a form. Or they could just go through it to kind of solve their own problem. And maybe they don't figure it out. Maybe they get to a step and they say, okay, this didn't fix it. I don't get it yet. They select a drop down. And when they do that, it can show, using conditional logic, a task, potentially maybe even only show that task to the internal team using task permissions to notify them using assignments. I know I'm throwing a lot of features out there. To notify them that, hey, this person's having some problems. You can see where they went in the process to try and fix it themselves, see where they got stuck, and you can go in there and solve it for them. So that's an example of an idea of how you could use Process Street to allow somebody to kind of solve their own problem. And if they don't, come in there and help them.
Yeah, and just to give another real life example, we like to use those shared links to send to a client when they reach out to us. So it's a bit more reactive versus proactive. They're not finding it on their own. So that could be possible with some fun setups, if you will. But it's a good way to make sure that we're continuing to engage with our clients, giving them that best-in-class service, but allowing them to be a bit more independent. So it serves dual purposes.
Absolutely. I've got a question here from Alex. It's not you, Alex, obviously, a different Alex. Will there be a pricing plan to have users which can be handled like members, but only are able to execute processes? In that sense, that would mean running checklists. So there aren't any other sort of plans in terms of different pricing, but just to kind of provide some clarity on the different ways to essentially to use, rather to have users in Process Street. Let me kind of walk through that really quickly. So you have, going from the very top level, you have admins and members. Those are the ones that you actually pay for. And the benefit of, say, an admin is just, of course, full control over everything at all times, including billing stuff and overall organizational stuff. Members you're also paying for. They just don't have access to those big organizational wide things, but members can create new templates. They can be given pretty much full permissions in specific areas throughout your organization. They're also able to be automatically assigned to things using those task assignments in the template, be able to be assigned to added to groups, really just, all of those sort of really cool, bigger automated features and the ability to create, edit templates. Right? So that's the big members feature, and that's what you're paying for. If you just have somebody who's coming in just to run checklists, though, and realistically to work on checklists, that's where you want to use a guest. And those are completely free. And really, if you're having somebody come in to work on checklists, there's two different types of users that you can have do that. That is a guest, and then you have an anonymous user. The example I used previously when I was talking about a customer coming in, that's an anonymous user because maybe you don't want them to have to log in, right? That is, of course, free. And the benefit of that is they don't have to log in. The downside is, of course, you can't assign things to them, so you don't get those sort of features. So it's pretty much a one and done type deal, and they just come in, get it done, and then come back if they ever need to and run a new instance. Guests, though, are also free, but what you're able to do is you're able to assign them to tasks on active checklists or assign them to entire checklists. You can also automate that using Zapier. So you run a checklist and you have it automatically assign the customer to that or the vendor or whomever else, and it can invite them in. They work on it. They can be assigned to things. They can get those notifications, those due dates. It's usually for people who are going to come in more than once. They want them to be able to keep coming in. That's the real big benefit of that. So you likely want to use guests for what you're going for in your question there. And if you need, of course, if you need additional sort of features beyond that, then of course you do need to have them as members. Are there any future plans on making a day-to-day task option on top of the predefined checklists? So actually what you want to do there, and thank you, Pete, for submitting that, is that you actually want to use what's called the scheduled checklist feature. I believe that's something that you guys use over at Datorama. Is that right, Alex?
Yep, sure is, yeah. For our daily health checks. Exactly
right. That's right. So anything you do on a repeating basis, daily, weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, bi-yearly, whatever it might be, you're going to be able to create what's called a scheduled checklist, where you take a template that you've created, process you've created, and you just say repeat on some sort of interval. And those are very flexible. And then you can say who should be assigned, how it should be named, when it should be due. And then, of course, all the other automated features like the task assignments, due dates, and everything else still apply. But now you never have to run the checklist ever again. It'll just automatically run and show up in your inbox. So definitely check that out. That's probably what would solve your need there. All right, so I think that's it in terms of questions. So that is the end. What I'd like to do, of course, at this time is also thank Alex for working so hard on this presentation. He's been amazing to work with. He really put in the effort. He's done a really, really good job at putting these slides together, giving me any of his time, which I know is really precious. Thank you so much, Alex, for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, and thank you all, Blake, the rest of the team for being such good partners, and Blake for being such an amazing host.
Oh, thank you so much. And with that, I also, of course, want to thank all of you for attending today. I really appreciate all of the questions that you guys have submitted.